Hi everyone, this is Lien and welcome back to the Crafty Meraki YouTube channel. Today I'm featuring the Always in My Heart stamp set that was released during the latest April release. A small release but a gorgeous one. And in this stamp set you have this amazing wreath. And I thought, well, maybe just change it up a bit. And although you have a wreath and images are included in a complete wreath, you can definitely use those images separately as well. Now there are many ways to do that. One of them is to mask off your stamp and then only stamp out what you need. Another thing that you could do is just stamp this complete stamp out and then just fussy cut around the images that you like. And another way again is to mask off the paper where you're stamping on. Now something that I find really handy is using my purple tape to mask off pieces of my stamp itself. This tape is bendable, you can put it in between those tiny lines, and although it almost stamped out perfectly, of course there was a tiny piece where the feather wasn't completely stamped, but with the Copic coloring you will not see that there is a tiny line missing. Now this stamp isn't as crisp as you might be able to do by stamping it multiple times, but call me lazy, I wasn't going to do the masking again. You can definitely do that and that will give you a crisp image. Now the most important thing for me was to get those eyes crisp, and that I will do later on with some multi-liners, with some white jelly roll pens. There are ways to work around this. Now for the coloring, I wanted to recreate a kind of bird that we have here. Often in Belgium we don't have really colorful birds, but you can definitely go rainbow or really bright if you want to. I decided to sort of try to create a robin. I searched it, it's a robin. So the male version has that belly that is a bit red-orangey, and then the female version, as most of the birds, at least here, they are a bit more natural in colors, so I kept her brown. But a lot of the same markers are returning. If you're curious about the combination later on, there is a blog post with all of the markers listed, just easy for reference. Of course, you can rewatch this video as well. Now to get a bit of a feathered look, I really went out there with the flicking and sort of having those lines and then working from there, creating the gradient that I needed. Now as you can see here, going for that red tummy, really sweet. I love these birds, they are so simple, but at the same time they have quite a lot of details, so that's why I really wanted to feature them. Now another thing, as you can also fussy cut them, of course there are also matching dies, but while I was creating this card I didn't have them yet, so I worked around that. For me personally, it's better to mask off instead of fussy cutting. But if you're a fussy cutting expert, then definitely do so. You have a lot of possibilities to really use your strengths to recreate this card in a way. As I said, not a lot of different markers. I'm using the same brown markers as I did for the male bird, and also the flicking. So this is a bit of repetition, just to show you how easy it can be. I also wanted to work with a bit of a shadow, so I decided to have the light source in the center of my image. So this one on the right side will have the shadows on the right side, the one on the left side had more of a shadow on the left side. So that's what I'm doing here. Later on the flowers I will keep it really simple. These birds need to shine. You can also mask off these flowers and have the birds on its own. That's perfectly an option as well. I saw some amazing design team members, their cards with a wreath and then the birds on its different in different placements. So they also fussy cut the birds and then just added them on random placements. I loved it. But again, play with your strengths depending on what you have at home. If you have the dies, no worries. If you don't have the dies and you prefer like me, you can always mask off and then you don't have to fussy cut. So with the flicking, I decided to not keep in mind that I can use my colorless blender to push away that Copic color inside of that white detail in the eyes. Later on I will also use my white jelly roll pen to fix that more. There are many ways to work around that, but when you're flicking, it's sometimes really hard to stop right at that moment that it's needed. So therefore, don't worry about it here. That colorless blender is going to push out that color, and that's just how I decided to tackle this. So for the leaves, I wanted to have some sort of muted colors. The flowers, I will do a really simple one. Here in Belgium, we have like a lot of these. Well, I don't know the name even in Dutch, so I cannot call it. But in the gardens, you have a lot like these flowers with the yellow in the center and white on the outside. So that's what I did. And then for the leaves, I wanted to not have a color that was too bright because my birds are quite muted with the browns. So I decided to have this sort of muted green version that I really love, this combination. It's yellow green 99, 97 and 95, and that works great. So I just added a bit of a darker one, working my way toward my lightest one. Also, this paper is Transotype Perfect Coloring Paper, which is a really good paper if you're working with alcohol markers. It can stand quite a lot of layers. Now in this case, with the flicking, I also wanted it to appear really realistic in a way. So I didn't bother going over things too much because I wanted to have the texture shown as well. But you can definitely go in here quite a lot of times to get exactly the blend that you want. This paper can handle it. So once I was happy with the coloring, I decided to create some masks. Why? Because I wanted to create a background without having to worry about my images. Of course, if you are going to ink blend like I do with a really soft color that is just going to be on the outside of your stencil or your panel, then it might not be needed to mask off your images. It depends on the well, on how strong your color is that you're using. But I will use blues, and I didn't want it to intervene with the flowers that are mostly white. So therefore, at least I needed those masks. So I was already fussy cutting things. Now here, as I said, I was fixing the eyes. I wanted it to appear stronger. So I used a black pen to really go onto the eyes. I tried to avoid the white areas, but that didn't work every time. So white jelly roll pen to fix that again, and then going back in with the black, you can really fiddle quite a lot of time, or a long time. So I decided to just take an A2 sized die to create my panel. I lined it up, and then I took my favorite, or one of my favorite stencils that I have here. Now, everyone has his own favorite stencils, so definitely use whatever you have at home, what you like, what your favorite is. I think the heart would be gorgeous as well, but the hearts that I had wasn't going to cover the complete size of these birds, and I really wanted that. So I took the watercolor wash square. This one is for my favorite things. But again, use whatever you like using. Here I had a really bad stamp, but use whatever you like. As I said, I fussy cut some masks. Now, I said I'm not good in fussy cutting, but the thing is here that there is a difference between fussy cutting a mask that you are going to remove, so if it's not perfect, it's not perfect and nobody will see it in the end, or fussy cutting an image. And then something that I love is that wide edge that a die leaves. And whenever I'm trying to fussy cut an image, because I don't have the dies, I try to recreate that wide edge. Now that's the hard thing for me, to have it as perfect as a die would do. So therefore, just fussy cutting a mask for me is okay. I can do that, and nobody will see my boo-boos at the end. So, added the masks, and now I'm adding that blue background. I was doubting quite a long time which color I was going to add, but then I just thought, well, you're going with the muted tones, don't go too bright with the background neither, and as these are birds, why don't you just add a blue background? That's just cute. And so I did that using some Tumbled gloss. Now the faded jeans is an option to also add on the edges, but I couldn't see what my end result was currently, so I was a bit scared. So I decided to just use the faded jeans to splatter a bit of blue all over. and then I could remove all the masks, the stencil, the masks. I took my time to remove the masks. Why? Well, because sometimes your mask can be really sticky and you don't want to rip your paper. I had it in the past. I was so disappointed afterwards. I got a few tips from crafters that are also active on YouTube and leaving gorgeous comments. Thank you for that. And there, one of the tips was to, first of all, you can always, if the mask is really sticky, add it to your hand or your trouser or anything to just release already a bit of the stickiness. That's ahead of time that you can do that. Now, if it really doesn't want to peel off, don't go too quickly. Try another angle. That's also an option. And if it still sticks really hard, there's always your heat gun that can help you. The heat will help you with the stickiness. So here, as you can see, everything was quite smoothly coming off, except this final bird. And so I really took my time, and I left it in this video, and maybe it's a bit stupid, it's a waste of time here, but I just wanted to show you that just taking your time will help. And a heat gun, it will help. So definitely try those things out if you're stuck with a mask on top. Now, another thing that I wanted to mention was that I am adding these masks on the back of my stamp set. Why? Because it's still sticky. It isn't oversaturated with inks, since I did just a really light ink blending in the background and mostly around the images. So I can reuse it for the next time. Just add it on some sort of a plastic and it will work just fine. So I did that. Sometimes if you remove a mask, even though it went smoothly, there can be a bit of stickiness still on top of your images. Therefore, I took my adhesive eraser here and just went on top of those birds just to be sure. Now for the sentiment, many great sentiments in this stamp set and gorgeous scripts. Now, as I only had this space with the stencil that I chose, I just decided to go for a symbol greeting from my favorite things, the Bitty Hugs and Kisses. There are several Bitty sentiments stamp sets at my favorite things, also available at Crafty Meraki. These sentiments will always work. If you are in a case like me, you just have a tiny area and you need a sentiment on top, of you really want to have a sentiment on top, definitely if you have one of these sets in your craft room or in your craft area, they will always work. There are some smaller, some larger ones, so definitely check that out if you just have a tiny space. So to finish off this card, I decided to add some white hearts. These are from Pretty Pink Posh. Many brands have them. I just wanted to keep it really simple and soft at the same time, since I just had these two images really shine on this card. So I scattered them, I added them with some liquid glue, and then I decided to finish off this card with just a tiny bit more. I took my Nuvo drops to help me, and I just added a tiny bit of this glitter, I think it's the White Blizzard if I'm not wrong, on the centers of the flowers. Tiny detail, but it works. And that is my card for today, featuring the Always in My Heart stamp set from Crafty Meraki. I hope that you enjoyed this video and that I could inspire you in a way to get crafting with this amazing stamp set. Thank you so much for stopping by and taking the time to watch this video. I truly appreciate you all. I wish you an incredible day and I'll be back soon. Bye!